So in this video I want to talk about the refurbishment of the B-pillar trim and reinstallation, including the base, the sills at the bottom, but also the felt liners or material liners around the roof line, as well as down the sides of the B-pillars, which are a different material. Now these areas you can see include the trim that runs up the side of the doors, and I'm also going to talk about the B-pillar reinstallation, as well as the B-pillar trim liner, which then merges with the door liner. So we have here two of the old B-pillar trims, and you can see your seat belt pieces are just folded over metal, so you could easily take them off and repaint them. Now they go on in an upward manner and come off in a downward manner once you've undone the two screws at the bottom. So you can see how that clip goes under the frame, lifting it up and then securing it on at the bottom. So you can see how also the two pieces are not symmetrical. You can see how the base plastic pieces fit. Again, not symmetrical. So there's just two screws that fit those on. And you can see them there. Now classically the corner bits break off. And you can see here, there's our probably left side 0122, and the right side is probably 0222. There you go, because it's a right side, it's an even number, the third one from the end. Screws traveling through there. Now the other aspect is there is a little channel to sit them over your B-pillar. So when you put them on, they should sort of slot in there, like so. And if you put on too thick a vinyl, they will not fit on. So just keep that in mind if you're rebinding, putting a material back on yourself. If you want to put leather or something silly, it's going to be quite thick and it may not fit over those little channels there. The other aspect of your sills is if you look online, you can find on eBay and other places this metal strip. Now there's all sorts of simple metal strips, however this is quite thin, and I have bought some before for the 116 and it's actually pretty nice to put on there. But anyway, these ones scrubbed up all right, and you can see how they fit flush. Although they've got a bit of a flex, and that's how you get them off. You just lift them up and keep going, and you'll hear the click. I was going to put these pieces on, or look to start getting them done. Now I've got two donor blacks, they're not great. I also have the brand new adhesive pieces here that go up and down, for example, the B-pillar, but I think the piping, I don't know if it sits outside or inside, and also how far this extends to the top, how far it extends to the bottom, and where do these pieces take over. So I'm just going to put these adhesive seals on. Now these are still available on eBay. I don't know if they're reproductions or not, they look legit, but what you've got here are these felts. Now from what I can see, the piping, the foamed piping sits outside, so when this is on, all of this is covered up. Now they're pretty good in that the adhesive seems to work well and goes around the contour. There's one part number for both sides of the B-pillar. Obviously the B-pillar coverings are asymmetric, which you'll note before you put them on. So there are a couple of little tabs which get lifted on from the bottom, and then you lift this thing up. So to get it off, you're going to actually pull that down after you've taken off the two screws at the bottom for the little plastic trim piece. So seatbelt has to go through there first. I've got to put a little cover on there, but I'm pretty happy with this foam now. I've only put a temporary rubber. I'm going to redo these. My material was average, so I just put that on as a marker. Now the amount of material you get seems to give you a couple of centimeters extra. So actually this time around I'm going to leave some spare up there, just in case I've done something silly on the front, and then we're going to try and put the B-pillar on. What I realized afterwards was put the plastic B-pillar trim on first and cut it to the limits of that. That's how you know where these start at the bottom and then just work it up and you can trim any excess off. I got this wrong, so I had to actually cut one side, which was a bit too long. So I'm just continuing to put this piping on. Again, just got some excess, so let's roll that around there, and you can see get this on. So the beading should just stick out. That doesn't look quite right there. I think I need to force that in more. But you can see here, looking appropriate. Looking pretty fair. I can cut that off later. So fitting the B-pillar back on this, the plastic base, that's the left side and that's the right side being the even number. And basically these fit to the bottom of the B-pillar frame and then gently get lifted upwards before the two screws are placed. Now, the two screws to hold the plastics are the recessed ones. So just pay attention, because on the left, the paint guys had actually put this bracket back on there into that hole. So that's why I couldn't get it on. So I've just lowered it, and that should resolve that problem for me. I'm also just going to put another tie just to hold these things over there. So we're now in place with the two Phillips screws. Everything's looking sound. It did try and bunch up at the top, so you just got to keep an eye on that when you're pushing this thing upwards. And otherwise, we're going to see what happens here. I've left excess there. I've run out a ½ centimetre short. I hope that I'm not short there once the side skirts go on. So it fits on both sides, so let's pop that one on. And all you do is slide that from bottom up, and there we go. One complete B-pillar. I'll see in the light of day what I think of this vinyl. It might need some sort of, I don't know, oiling armor or product or something on it to darken it up. Although it probably matches the leather pretty well, which is the most important thing. So time to put in the steps. Now, just have a look before I bang it down, because is that going to go like that? And I've got a slight void here of 1 millimeter, and maybe 1 millimeter up there, which is why that extra material was on there. So I'm going to push that down. There's a slight gap there. That's why that extra tail of material was on there. Usually I snip that off. I'm going to wear that. And that one's flush up. I can't even remember if that's actually supposed to sit just over the top of it. Anyway, that's looking pretty good. So having had two donor cars, I've had two sets to choose from. The rear one's hopefully going to be a bit better, because they were never really used in the rear of the car, but for a wagon that may not have been the case. So let's have a look. Here's our rear one. So slight gap again, that material could have stayed on there. So these strips around the door or on the roof and down the vertical, they usually lose their adhesiveness, and the material frays and comes off. So these are the originals. You can see how in some areas that are stuck, they're fairly well cut in a nice linear fashion, and at one edge they're nicely rolled over. The other edge has a loose portion that can be tucked under the door sills. So here's my old ones, and what I want to do is actually recover them. So if you're in Australia, I found a pretty good matching material at Spotlight. After searching through about 20 black materials, I found one with a sort of linear pattern, and the plan was to remove these, adhere them on there, cut them back, to the appropriate position, and this actually worked out pretty well. So just an example of the old ones. So everything's cut nice and neat compared to, although it's hidden, mine is not cut in a linear piece of material. I don't know how they put these on by machine, but you can see how it all sort of frays off on all of them. So some sort of solution needs to be found. I think that was acceptable. So I've just hung this vertically outside, and we'll put some adhesive, probably some 3i material adhesive is best. This did seem to do the job, and I've just hung this vertically, and then I run from top to bottom, wrapping the material around. You can see here. Now I don't worry about the excess because I'm going to trim this off with a scalpel from the fitting side, and then the length at the bottom. And you can see the actual material pattern is very close. It's got that sort of linear grain to it. And although there's excess on there, I'm going to trim that off. And these turned out really nice, actually. I was very happy with them. So all complete now. We have the B-pillar piping running up quite flush there. Now that then rolls into the material we just sort of put on there and sealed. So that's all looking handy. Coming down here, and you can see there is a junction there where you're supposed to leave material. I thought I wanted it sealed up, so I do have a small gap there. I'm gonna have to wear that. I do have a spare set. Maybe I'll remake later on if I'm a lunatic. I'll probably end up doing that. So let me look here. It's sitting nicely against the A-pillar, flush up against the roof, and in here then we continue with the B and C pillar one coming down here. I haven't yet got that carpet on, and once again a small gap just down here, but over here is where the piping is flush. Overall a vast improvement. So that's all looking very flash.